Good morning, everyone. I'm here to talk today about something that's very important. And in fact, it's something that has been really the cornerstone of my campaign. And that is honesty, integrity, transparency, and ethics. So throughout this campaign, as you know, not only have I been advancing the things that I believe make me the best candidate for this position, but I've also been talking about my opponent's record. Until last week, I was the only one talking about my opponent's record. My opponent wasn't talking about her record of suspension, and the local media wasn't talking about the suspension until last week. So on Wednesday, October 26th, the Sentinel finally ran a story that talked about and mentioned for the first time during this election season the suspension. So they named it here, Hot Button Issues, Keeping Races Lively. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the suspension order and talk about why I think this entire article really sums up and is demonstrative of everything I have been saying throughout this campaign. So we can start over here, the first kind of part of this article. Here in the fourth paragraph, they've said, we've heard a lot of accusations and rumors and nasty comments. It's just difficult to determine which accusations are accurate and which are not, mainly because we have a small staff and there are backstories in each case. Well, let's start with that. They go on after that statement. The only thing they talk about are the official records of the suspension. We need to be clear that those aren't accusations. Those are facts. Those happened. She agreed to them. They aren't rumors. And I believe this first comment, kind of mentioning accusations and rumors, it appears to me an attempt to minimize what happened when it should be just the opposite. Now, the next row here, you can see in the large paragraph that they actually take some responsibility for their failure to mention this so far. They say, there is one truth that we can't ignore journalistically. In hindsight, we wish we'd mentioned it sooner in the campaign process, but we had different plans. Things played out differently, and the 2020 incident with Judge Donna Dutton has turned into the hot button issue. What I would like to ask the Sentinel News today is for some clarification about what were those plans if it was not to inform the voters of relevant official records of a sitting judge's suspension for ethics. What exactly were the plans that played out differently? And who ruined them? I have a sneaky suspicion it was probably me. Now that we've seen that, and we're going to come back to that, I want to actually bring up the suspension order itself because, like I said, the Sentinel News ran this, but to date, the papers in Anderson and Spencer counties have still yet to mention anything about this to their voters. So there's a lot of people that remain uninformed and have not seen the suspension order. Now you can see this was issued by the Kentucky Judicial Conduct Commission. It's available online. It's public record. Any of you can get off right now and pull this up. In this paragraph here, this covers what's been, I believe, fairly widely discussed, which is Judge Dutton made an improper comment on the record about another attorney. And so it says, at a bench conference conducted during the proceedings, Judge Dutton accused defense counsel of stealing from her husband, Gilmore Dutton. She then commented that defense counsel is not going to be conflicted out forever, which was reasonably perceived as a threat by the parties involved. After the bench conference, she failed to immediately recuse. I think a lot of that has been widely discussed, at least in with people that know of this already. So I want to focus on this last paragraph because that is not the end of the story. This last paragraph talks about what happens when she gets off the bench. So the commission further received further information that following the bench conference, Judge Dutton interfered with defense counsel's right to obtain a video copy of the bench conference. Judge Dutton improperly pressured both the Shelby County Circuit Court clerk and Judge Linda Bullock to decline to provide the video as requested. Judge Dutton's interference ultimately resulted in involvement from the administrative office of the courts, Judge Bullock's recusal, and the appointment of a special judge. So I think right now it's appropriate for us to discuss the difference between a choice and a mistake. We all make mistakes. It's part of the human condition, and I certainly understand that. However, when you make a choice, that is different. So I would argue that the statement made on the record could be viewed as a mistake. However, once she left the bench, cooler heads should have prevailed. And at that point, when instead of apologizing for that mistake, taking accountability and moving on, when she made the choices, the bad choices, to try and further cover up that mistake, not only herself, but to influence improperly other elected officials to also violate the law to cover up her mistake, those were choices. Those were choices she made. And I think that is a really, really important point here. So on the second page, you're going to see where the commission suspended her for the 8 different ethics violations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you're also going to see on the last page, Judge Dutton signed this. So her signature is there because she has agreed that all this conduct occurred and that all of that conduct not only occurred, but it violated these different ethics rules. So let's go back to the article. And I want to go specifically to her statement. So as part of this article, this hot button issue article, they gave Judge Dutton the opportunity to make a statement. Here is her statement she made to the voters. Now, this was a perfect opportunity for her to take some accountability and to finally really recognize her conduct and speak to the voters directly about it. This is what she had to say. That issue involved the theft of a large sum of money by an attorney who also happens to practice law with my opponent. I let my personal feelings about the theft interfere with my courtroom conduct, and for that I apologize. No litigants were affected by my actions, and the only person hurt was me. So I want to break this down a little bit and take this one at a time. That issue involved the theft. So for the Sentinel News, I would like to publicly ask, in the interest of accuracy, whether they required any evidence to be shown to them that a theft occurred. Did they ask for a conviction of theft, or much less a charge of theft related to this particular incident? I have to assume that either they asked for it, found out it doesn't exist, and didn't care, or they just didn't ask for it because they didn't want to know. But either way, under the law, when you publicly accuse someone of a crime, you open yourself up to the possibility of civil liability in the form of slander. And that's exactly what I'm saying here. Was there any evidence that they saw? I would like an answer to that. And I think that the voters deserve an answer to that. If you're going to allow someone to use the paper to promote this sort of discussion, I believe that you have an obligation as a journalist to make sure that that allegation is correct. Let's move on. by an attorney who also happens to practice law with my opponent. I'll be clear. I know the attorney that was involved in this. He is a friend of mine. But I don't practice law with anyone. I own my own business. It's Will's Law Office, and it employs one attorney, and that's me. So I believe the way that she said this is pretty misleading, and you can decide for yourself why she would have wanted to term it that way. Next, I let my personal feelings about the theft interfere with my courtroom conduct, and for that I apologize. Again, 2 years later, a complete absence of any accountability for what happened once she got out of the courtroom. The courtroom conduct, I think, can be viewed as a mistake. She apologizes for that, which is fantastic. But she takes absolutely no accountability for the things she did, the deception and unethical and improper conduct she displayed after she got off the bench in order to try and hide her own conduct. Finally, no litigants were affected by my actions. Well, I think we know that that's incorrect because the Judicial Conduct Commission order talks about at least one litigant was affected when that litigant was unable to obtain public records due to her interference. And finally, the only person hurt was me. I think for me, that statement specifically is just so indicative of what I've been saying throughout this campaign. What about all the employees of the courthouse? I have to assume that when a sitting judge tries to improperly influence two other elected officials to violate the law on her own behalf, it's got to cause some sort of awkwardness, if not a hostile work environment. What about the employees that were working in that building while this was going on? No recognition of them. What about the attorney that she continues to allege that committed a crime with absolutely no evidence? What about the voters? The voters who have given her their trust over the last 17 years. What about the harm to them? To know that someone they trusted engaged in such improper conduct. This is exactly what I've been saying this entire election season long. We deserve better. Voters deserve better. So I want to thank everyone that has been so supportive of me, because when I filed for this position, I understood it would require me to stand up and speak about things that weren't going to be popular with everyone. I understood that I would have to stand up and put forth records that a lot of people did not want to acknowledge or see. I went into that willingly because I thought it was the right thing to do. But there are countless people in this community that have stood up along with me. And I want to tell you, I see you and how much I appreciate you, because I know firsthand it is not an easy thing. It's not easy to stand up and speak truth. And it's certainly not easy to stand up to people in power and demand accountability. I've seen you do it. I've seen you do it for this campaign because you believe in me and you believe that we have the same values and believe in transparency and ethics and integrity. And I want to thank you specifically. We are coming up we are a week away from this election. So to voters today, I just want to ask you, when you go into that voting booth, I ask that you remember that these people work for you. And when you have a sitting judge trying to improperly influence other elected officials, there is no better evidence of official corruption than that. That is misconduct. That is corruption. And up and down the ticket this election season, I think that we are seeing over and over, voters are tired of it, tired of the corruption, tired of the people in power not taking accountability for the things they have done and just counting on you to just close your eyes and vote. I ask you to think about that and not comply. So I will see you soon. Keep your questions coming. I love getting on here and answering your questions for you. And have a good week.